Today we're going to talk about this world of grudges and favors. This Jianghu is filled with countless grievances and debts. Some of these feuds, when we look back later, turn out to be meaningful and valuable. But others, when we trace their roots, are surprisingly trivial and underwhelming. That's the Jianghu of grudges and debts. So many resentments that are tangled beyond explanation, impossible to sort out clearly. Yet more often than not, tiny grudges can escalate into huge incidents. When we only see the major events that follow, we can't help but think, this must have stemmed from a deep-seated hatred. But later we find out that the original cause was actually utterly insignificant. Speaking of grudges, let me tell you one story. It happened in the 1990s, specifically 1995, in Tianjin. This is a Jianghu tale from over 20 years ago. Let's talk about it briefly. Back in July 1995, on the 2nd Avenue of Tianjin's Economic and Technological Development Zone, there stood a restaurant. Its name was White House Restaurant, a really bold and impressive name, just like the White House in the US. You could tell from the name that the people running it meant business. It had to serve amazing food. Today, we are going to focus on the story of the owner of this White House restaurant. The owner's surname was Wang, and his full name was Wang Jinsha. Everyone called him Boss Jin. They even dropped the Wang entirely, just referring to him as Boss Jin or Boss Jinsha. Back then, he was quite a prominent figure in the Beijing-Tianjin area. Not exactly the most powerful, but definitely no ordinary person. Anyone who could open such a large restaurant must have had some real skills. You couldn't pull it off without connections and means. Boss Jin was about my age. He'd been a gangster in his younger days. In 1983, during the crackdown, he was arrested for robbery and sentenced to 10 years in prison. But many of those who received heavy sentences in the 1983 crackdown didn't serve their full terms. Boss Jin, for example, only spent about 4 or 5 years behind bars before he was released. Looking at his life story, you'd have to admit he was quite a character. After his release, he started small businesses in Tianjin. He didn't jump straight into opening the White House restaurant. No one could do that overnight. He began with small ventures like building materials wholesale, slowly saving up capital through various trades until he finally opened that impressive White House restaurant. This path is familiar to many people. I have a friend who was also imprisoned during the 1980 crackdown. After his release, he started selling cold noodles, then opened a small eatery, which later became a noodle shop, then a Sichuan restaurant, and eventually a large restaurant. It's always a step-by-step process, accumulating money bit by bit to grow the business. That's exactly how the White House restaurant came to be, a true rags to riches story, absolutely remarkable. July 1st, 1995, was a red-letter day. It was the restaurant's anniversary, or maybe a special celebration, who cares? The point is, it was a great day. Boss Jin was in high spirits. The restaurant was packed with customers. He was bustling around, greeting guests left and right, his face beaming with joy. After all, what business owner wouldn't be thrilled to see their place full to the brim? The restaurant had 3 floors in total, 2 above ground and 1 basement, all divided into private dining rooms. Boss Jin wandered around, checking on every corner just like any diligent boss would. As he passed by one of the private rooms, the door was ajar, and he caught sight of something infuriating inside. One of his female waitresses was being harassed by a group of 5 or 6 gangsters dining there. The ringleader of this group, a guy who looked like a small-time thug with a cocky attitude, was named Yin II. He was hitting on the waitress just because she was pretty. "Come here, little lady. Sit on Big Brother's lap and chat a while. We don't mind waiting for the food. Come on, let Big Brother feel your face. Wow, such smooth skin. Sit here, no rush at all. Just imagine she was a waitress, doing her job. How dare he touch her and order her around like that? Of course she refused, turning to walk away. But he grabbed her arm, refusing to let go. The waitress struggled fiercely, and in a fit of anger, he grabbed her hair and yanked it hard, forcing her to stay. This exact moment was witnessed by Boss Gene himself. Now, Boss Gene was a tough guy, a real man's man. He thought to himself, what the hell? You come here to eat, fine, but how dare you harass my staff? You think you're tough, picking a fight in my place? Who the hell do you think you are? Without hesitation, he stormed in and slapped Yen the second hard across the face. Then he told the waitress, go back to the kitchen first, you're safe now. Turning back to Yen, he snarled, you son of a bitch. Eat your damn meal and behave yourself, or get the hell out of my restaurant. The gangsters, used to throwing their weight around, suddenly backed down after seeing their leader get slapped. They realized they'd messed with the wrong person. Fine, you're tough. Let's go, brothers, Yen the second muttered, and they scurried out of the restaurant. But they didn't just leave it at that. After a short while, they came back with 5 or 6 even tougher guys in tow. It was classic gangster behavior back then. If you got humiliated, you went to get back up. The leader of this new group was someone Boss Gene actually knew. His name was Erlizy. I'm not making this up, that's what everyone called him. They ran in the same Jianghu circles, so they were acquaintances, though not close friends. Boss Gene recognized him immediately as he led the group storming into the restaurant, looking furious. But Erlizy didn't show him any respect at all. He marched right up to Boss Gene and sneered, well, Jinja, huh? You're pretty bold, slapping my brother like that. What's the matter? Are all your women just whores? Can't we even touch one of them? Acting like some goddamn knight in shining armor, huh? With that, he swung his fist and punched Boss Gene square in the face. The punch left Boss Gene's face stinging and swollen. But Boss Gene wasn't alone. He had his own crew working at the restaurant. At that very moment, one of his underlings, a guy named Yupeng, saw Erlizy hit his boss. Yupeng lost his temper. What the fuck? How dare you hit our boss? I'll fucking kill you, he roared, grabbing a heavy steel pike, the kind gangsters used for fights. He charged at Erlizy, not caring about the other thugs at all, and slammed the pike down hard on Erlizy's head, leaving a huge lump. He didn't hit to kill, just to teach him a lesson. Erlizy, clutching his bleeding head, was terrified. Shit, you guys are crazy. Alright, we're leaving. Most of our crew isn't here. We were called over from dinner somewhere else. We weren't ready for this fight. You just wait, Jinja will be back with Chuanqi, he yelled, before scrambling away with his men. Now, we need to talk about Chuanqi, because he's the key figure in this story. His full name was Wang Chuanqi, but everyone in the Jianghu called him Brother Chuan or Brother Qi. He was a top-tier gang leader in Tianjin, so powerful that his mere name could shake the entire city. Of course Boss Gene knew who he was. Everyone in the underworld did. After Erlizy left, Boss Gene felt uneasy, but he tried to brush it off. It's just a stupid scuffle, he thought. What can they do? Even if they bring Chuanqi, I know him, how bad can it get? Still, he made some preparations just in case they came back for revenge. He called in his most trusted men, Lu Ligong, a distant relative who was also a well-known gangster, Brother Xiao, another tough guy everyone respected, and Xiao Yuan, among others. There were more, but we'll focus on these 3 for now. Boss Gene told them what had happened and asked for their opinions. Lu Ligong frowned and said, "Boss, those punks like Air Lizzie aren't a problem. The one we need to worry about is Chuanqi. Let's be honest, we can't afford to mess with him. We'll have to see how things play out." From that day on, starting July 1st, Boss Gene told his crew to stay on high alert. "Take turns keeping watch at night," he ordered. "If those bastards come back to retaliate, especially after dark, we won't hold back, we'll fight them tooth and nail." Then he added, "But fists and pipes aren't enough. We need something bigger. Get guns now." It was clear from this that Boss Gene was genuinely afraid of Chuanqi. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone to the trouble of arming his men. And since Boss Gene had plenty of money, he sent Lu Ligong and Brother Zhao out of town to buy weapons. What did they bring back? 4 semi-automatic shotguns, 1 single-barrel shotgun, and a crate of bullets, the exact same arsenal used by the Haibao gang in the notorious Hegang 128 case. With that kind of firepower, they were confident they could handle anything. "Now we're ready," Boss Gene said. "Let Chuanqi come, we're not scared of him or Air Lizzie anymore." But Boss Gene also wanted to avoid bloodshed if possible. He still had Chuanqi's pager number, so he decided to take the initiative. He sent Chuanqi several messages, but Chuanqi ignored him at first. Finally, Chuanqi called him back. Boss Gene said, "Brother Qi, you've heard about what happened the other day, right? Air Lizzie left saying you'd come settle the score with me. I've been waiting, but you haven't shown up. So I thought I'd reach out, let's meet. I'll host a feast, bring your men. There's no need for hard feelings, we can talk this through. After all, there's no enemy that can't be turned into a friend, right? What do you think?" Chuanqi laughed over the phone. "Jinja, that's nothing but a trivial scuffle, slaps and punches, so what? Here's what we'll do. You prepare 100,000 to 200,000 yuan as compensation for my men's medical bills. That's it." Boss Gene's blood boiled when he heard that. 100,000 to 200,000 yuan in 1995 was a fortune. To put it in perspective, back in 1998, I couldn't even scrape together 50,000 yuan if my life depended on it. And this was 3 years earlier. Boss Gene ran a big restaurant, but that kind of money still stung. He thought furiously, "This is nothing but extortion. Yan the second harassed my waitress, I slapped him. Air Lizzie punched me, now he wants me to pay 200,000 yuan? I could hire him men to take all of them out for that kind of money." He was seething with anger, but Chuanqi cut him off. "All right, let's meet on July 7th, you know, the day the college entrance exam ends. I'll come to your White House restaurant at 7 p.m. Prepare a private room, and we'll talk then." "Got it." With that, Chuanqi hung up the phone. Boss Gene slammed the receiver down, fuming. "Extortion, pure and simple," he growled. Once again, he called Lu Ligong, Brother Zhao, and Xiao Yuan to a meeting to discuss their plan. "Chuanqi's coming on the 7th at night," Boss Gene said. "Here's what we'll do. If he comes in good faith, we'll host the feast, give him a token sum of money, nothing too painful, and call it a day. But if he comes with his men looking for a fight, well, we've got the guns. We'll fight back with everything we've got. What do you say, brothers? Are you with me?" Lu Ligong nodded fiercely. "No problem, boss." Brother Zhao added, "Don't worry, Brother Gene, we're with you till the end. Whatever you say, we do. That's how Jianghu works, isn't it?" The long-awaited July 7th arrived. That night, Chuanqi, the legendary gang leader, showed up at the White House restaurant with 5 of his men and, surprisingly, his pregnant wife in tow. In total, there were 7 of them. Boss Gene and Lu Ligong stood at the entrance to greet them. But Chuanqi and his crew were as arrogant as ever. They strutted in with their noses in the air, not even glancing at Boss Jean, treating him like he was invisible. One of Chuanqi's underlings, a tough guy named Qiao Qi, walked up to Boss Jean and sneered, "So you're Jinja? You had the balls to hit my brother? Impressive. Here's the deal. Hand over 10,000 yuan first for my brother's medical bills, and we'll talk about the rest later." Boss Jean frowned. "He hit me too. I only slapped him once. Why should I pay 10,000 yuan? Does Brother Qi agree to this?" He looked at Chuanqi, hoping for a reasonable response. But Chuanqi just smirked and said, "Sit down and talk. We'll sort it out over drinks." A waiter then led Chuanqi and his entourage to private room No. 3 downstairs. Boss Jean could feel the tension in the air. Something bad was about to happen. These guys weren't here to negotiate, they were here to pick a fight. He pulled Lu Ligong aside and whispered, "Here's the plan. You and I will go down to talk to them. The rest of the crew will lay in ambush outside. If the conversation goes well, great. If it turns ugly, I'll signal by telling the waiter to serve the food. At that signal, rush in and take them down. Don't hold back. Kill those bastards." Lu Ligong nodded, and the two of them went downstairs to private room No. 3. Chuanqi and his men were already seated, drinking tea. No food had been served yet. As soon as Boss Jean and Lu Ligong sat down, one of Chuanqi's men, a guy wearing glasses with a sneering, condescending look, spoke up. "Boss Jean, don't treat us like fools. We're not some street vendors you can brush off." Lu Ligong, already on edge, shot back, "And we're not pushovers either. If you're not street vendors, we're not potatoes. Don't try to bully us." Chuanqi's face darkened instantly. He glared at Lu Ligong and shouted, "You son of a bitch! Who the hell do you think you are, talking to me like that? You have no right to open your mouth here. Shut the fuck up before I beat you to a pulp, you piece of shit." The atmosphere turned icy in an instant. This was a complete breakdown. No more negotiating. Lu Ligong thought to himself, "This is it. No turning back now." He forced a smile and said, all right, I'll keep quiet. Let's just order the food and talk over the meal, okay?" Then he turned to Boss Jean and said loudly, "Boss, tell the waiter to serve the food for Brother Qi and his men." That was the prearranged signal. Outside the private room, Brother Xiao, Xiao Yuan, and the rest of the crew were waiting with loaded shotguns. As soon as they heard the signal, they rushed to the door. Boss Jean and Lu Ligong quickly jumped up, ran outside, and blocked the door, trapping Chuanqi and his men inside. "Open fire! Kill them all!" Boss Jean roared. The gangsters inside panicked and tried to stand up, but it was too late. The crew outside fired through the door, aiming at their knees and thighs. Bah! 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 The shots rang out, and the gangsters fell to the ground, screaming in pain, their knees shattered. Even Chuanqi's pregnant wife wasn't spared. Brother Zhao yelled through the door, "Still think you're tough, huh? You were so cocky earlier. Where's that attitude now?" Inside the room, Chuanqi, kneeling on the floor in agony, begged for mercy. "Brothers, you're the real deal. I surrender. Spare us. I swear I'll retire from the Jianghu forever, never be again leader again. Please, send us to the hospital. My wife is pregnant. Have mercy." The other gangsters also knelt down, kowtowing frantically, their earlier arrogance gone without a trace. Their legs were broken, and they could barely move. Boss Jean and Lu Ligong exchanged a look. "This guy is a top gang leader in Tianjin," Boss Jean whispered. "If we let him live, he'll come back for revenge. Sooner or later we'll never be able to run this restaurant in peace again." We'll be lucky to keep our lives. What do you say? Should we finish them off? Lu Ligong nodded firmly. No turning back, now kill them all. The crew dragged their shotguns inside, closed the door to muffle the noise, since the restaurant was still full of customers, and decided not to waste any more bullets. Instead, they grabbed ropes and started strangling the wounded gangsters one by one, Chuanqi, his men, even his pregnant wife. They beat their heads with the butts of the shotguns to make sure they were dead, then tied the ropes tight around their necks until they stopped breathing. By the end, all 7 of them were dead. Boss Jin couldn't help but think, Chuanqi must be kicking himself now. Why the hell did he bring his pregnant wife along? That's the stupidest mistake he ever made. But it was too late for regrets, they were all dead. After the killings, Boss Jin, Brother Xiao, and the others stripped the bodies naked and dragged them to the kitchen's large sink, hiding them there. Then they cleaned up the crime scene meticulously, wiping away all traces of blood. Later that night, they loaded the bodies into a car, drove to a remote reed marsh, and dumped them there, where no one would find them. The whole thing was done so secretly that no one suspected a thing. But during this chaos, something unexpected happened. Earlier that evening, around 5 o'clock, before Chuanqi arrived, Lu Ligong had been making rounds in the restaurant when he spotted his brother-in-law dining there with a friend. His brother-in-law's surname was Jin something. Lu Ligong couldn't remember his full name. They exchanged a quick greeting, and that was it. But his brother-in-law was a curious guy. He noticed that Lu Ligong looked tense and anxious, like something big was about to happen. Intrigued, he wandered around the restaurant, peeking here and there. Eventually, he snuck down to the basement private room and saw the whole thing. Lu Ligong and the crew ambushing Chuanqi and his men, shooting them, then strangling them with ropes. Instead of panicking and running away, the brother-in-law got fired up. My brother-in-law is in a fight, I have to help, he thought. Without hesitation, he burst into the private room and kicked Chuanqi hard in the face. Lu Ligong was shocked. What the hell are you doing here? Get out of here now. This has nothing to do with you, he shouted, pushing his brother-in-law out of the room. 7 lives were lost over a trivial incident if you think about it. How did this all start? It was just a waitress being grabbed by the hair, a slap, a punch, and a threat to call Chuanqi. Nothing more than a petty scuffle. But now, 7 people were dead and the restaurant was ruined, no longer viable. There was only one thing left to do: close the restaurant immediately and run. Boss Jin told Lu Ligong and Brother Xiao to send the crew south to Guangzhou to lay low. Then he called his wife, Xiuying, and said, Xiuying, hurry to the bank and withdraw 150,000 yuan. Split it among the brothers as hush money. I'll meet you in Guangzhou. We're leaving Tianjin for good. The restaurant is done. Looking back, Boss Jin couldn't help but think, if he'd just agreed to pay Chuanqi 150,000 yuan in the first place, the restaurant would still be open, and no one would have died. But regret is useless, there's no going back in life. Later, the crew split up and fled in different directions. But Boss Jin, despite his tough reputation and years in prison, was a coward at heart. On the way to Guangzhou, he was terrified every time he saw a police officer. He'd panic and hide. Brother Xiao was frustrated with him. Boss Jin, you've been in the Jianghu for years, why are you so scared? We've already killed 7 people, what more can the police do to us? If they catch us, we'll fight back, what's the worst that can happen? But Boss Jin couldn't shake his fear. Once they reached Guangzhou, Brother Zhao and Lu Ligong started to realize that Boss Jin was unreliable. He was too cowardly to stick with them through thick and thin. They even considered killing him to tie up loose ends. But Boss Jin was smarter than they gave him credit for. He sensed their distrust, so he lied to them, saying, "Don't worry, brothers, you helped me out of this mess, and I'll take care of you for the rest of your lives. I'll never forget what you've done." Then he secretly went to the train station and bought a ticket to Fuzhou, Fujian, and fled alone. This proved that even though Boss Jean was a coward, he was a seasoned Jianghu veteran. He knew when to cut and run to save his own skin. With Boss Jean gone, Lu Ligong, Brother Xiao, and Xiao Yuan were stuck in Guangzhou with little money left. Each of them had only gotten 20,000 yuan from the 150,000 yuan Boss Jean had given them, and it was running out fast. They had no reason to stay in Guangzhou anymore, and homesickness started to set in. I find that strange. How could they miss home after committing such a heinous crime? I've had my own experience on the run, though. Years ago, I was wanted by the Chengxi Public Security Bureau in Qinghai, so I fled and traveled through every county and prefecture in Qinghai, including all the Tibetan pastoral areas. I hitched rides on big Dongfeng grain trucks, no need to buy tickets, and it was safer that way. I just give the driver a pack of cigarettes and sweet-talk him, and he'd let me ride in the cab or even on the sacks of grain in the back. Life on the run was miserable. Every time the truck stopped for lunch at a roadside restaurant, the drivers would go in to eat and drink, but I'd stay in the truck, munching on 2 sesame seed cakes with no water to wash them down. I never once felt homesick, not even for a second. But these guys were different. They missed Tianjin badly, so they decided to go back, even though it was risky. They needed money to survive, whether to stay in hiding or flee again later. Lu Ligong thought of someone he knew, a businessman named Tai Dai, Iron Belt, who was loaded and ran in the same Jianghu circles. On the night of August 30th, 1995, Lu Ligong, Brother Xiao, and Xiao Yuan showed up at Tiedai's house unannounced. Tai Dai was watching TV with his wife and daughter when he saw them. He was shocked but tried to be polite. "Lu Ligong, Brother Xiao, what are you doing here?" Come in," he said. But the three of them had no time for pleasantries. They got straight to the point. "We're in trouble. We need money to leave town and lay low," Lu Ligong said bluntly. Tai Dai hesitated. "You guys showed up out of the blue, no call, no warning. It's the middle of the night. Where am I supposed to get cash right now?" Brother Xiao glared at him. "You're a big businessman. Don't tell us you don't have any money. Just give us 10,000 yuan, that's all we need." Back in 1995, 10,000 yuan was no small sum. Tai Dai had no choice but to turn to his wife and ask, "How much cash do we have at home?" Reluctantly, his wife handed over 30,000 yuan. Lu Ligong took the money, then noticed Tiedai's wife wearing a gold necklace and earrings. "Take those off, we want them too," he said. Tiedai's wife was terrified. "Whatever you want, just take them. If you wanted the TV or the air conditioner, I'd take them down for you right now," she said, quickly removing the jewelry and handing it over. Lu Ligong pocketed the money and jewelry, then nodded at Tai Dai. "You're a good guy, we appreciate it. Enjoy your TV, we're leaving." The three of them walked out the door. But as soon as they were outside, Lu Ligong stopped and said to Brother Xiao, "Think about it, we just came back from Guangzhou, and no one knew we were in Tianjin except Tai Dai. If he rats us out to the police, we're done for, we'll have nowhere to run. What should we do?" Brother Xiao's eyes turned cold. "What do you think? Kill them all, no loose ends. 3 more lives won't make a difference." The three of them turned around and went back to Tiedai's house. Inside, Tai Dai and his wife were arguing. She was yelling at him for bringing trouble home by associating with gangsters. When they heard a knock on the door, Tiedai's wife shouted, "Don't open it. They're back for more." But Lu Ligong called out, "Tai-Dai, we left something on your sofa, open the door so we can get it." Reluctantly, Tai-Dai opened the door. The three of them rushed in, grabbed ropes, and strangled Tai-Dai, his wife, and their 12-year-old daughter, who was doing homework at the table. 3 more lives were lost. In total, they had killed 10 people all over a trivial dispute over a waitress. That's the way the Jianghu works. If you're mixed up with gangsters, this is the kind of thing that can happen. I moved to Shijiazhuang in 1989 and stayed until 2000. During that time, many of my friends from Qinghai's Jianghu came to me for help. Some were on the run, some needed money. I never turned them away, I'd give them whatever I had. But I was lucky none of them were like Lu Ligong and Brother Xiao, who'd kill you for money after you helped them. Think about it, 10 lives lost over what? A waitress being grabbed by the hair, a slap, a punch. If that small incident had never happened, none of these people would have died. Big cases always start with tiny, trivial things. Now, let's talk about Boss Jin's wealth. Was he really as rich as people thought? After he and his wife fled to Guangzhou, the police had no leads to track them down. Back then, there were no surveillance cameras, no way to monitor their movements. So the police came up with a plan. They froze Boss Jin's bank accounts and monitored all his financial transactions. If he tried to withdraw money anywhere in the country, the police would be alerted immediately. Boss Jin had a Great Wall credit card with over 900,000 yuan in it, an astronomical sum in 1995. It was his wife who made the mistake. She tried to withdraw money from this card, and that's how the police caught her. That's how you know he was truly wealthy. The police also found out that before opening the White House restaurant, Boss Jin had owned several businesses, including building materials wholesale and rental stalls, 6 or 7 stalls in total. He wasn't running them anymore. He'd rented them out to other people, earning a steady stream of rent every month. The police figured that since his credit card was frozen, he'd eventually come back to Tianjin to collect the rent. They staked out the stalls, waiting for him. Sure enough, he returned to collect the rent, and that's when the police arrested him. That's the story, a life of no choice in the Jianghu. There's no suspense to the arrest of the entire gang. It's not worth talking about. The only interesting part is the case itself, a huge scandal that shocked Tianjin. The Tianjin police took it extremely seriously, as it should be, for a case involving 10 murders. Okay, that's all for today.